So the third step of the Body Life Skills program is talking about skills. In the behaviour scale, what that scale is about is understanding. So the body and the life is about understanding why the behaviours are actually happening. But the I Choose chart is all about the change. Teaching new skills is where lasting change is going to occur. So what we've developed is this chart that we call the Fabric I Choose chart that we've been using with many of our clients over the years. What the Fabric I Choose chart is exactly offering a person a choice of how they respond to life. Rather than telling people how to respond to life, it's actually saying we're going to offer you a new way to respond to life, and then it's actually your choice. It's totally up to you. But how we complete an I Choose chart is basically from step 2, we identify what's the part of life that person found challenging, what's their smash picture, what's the trigger, what's going on in the setting, the interactions, the task, or inside the person's body. So we identify one small part of life. And we title the I Choose chart with that part of life. So here we've got the part of life I find challenging. Then when we're completing the I Choose chart, we write down here what are the behaviours that person's actually using in reaction to that part of life. But then we also highlight what are the natural consequences. Because the way behaviour is going to change is then when people start connecting to the fact that they choose the outcomes in their life. So they choose to use these option 2 behaviours, but they also choose the natural consequences that will naturally occur as a result of them using those particular behaviours. But then when working with a client, whether that be ourselves or another person, we then identify, well, what are the wanted outcomes? What are the outcomes that the person is hoping to get as a result of responding to this part of life that we originally identified? So what we're trying to, the next step of what we're trying to identify is, well, what's the outcomes the person is hoping to achieve as a result of responding to the part of life that has been presented to them. But one of the parts of life that I find very interesting is that we often assume that people know option 1. Yeah, and it's that assumption that is having our society having behaviours getting worse, having mental health issues getting worse, having the Justice Department overflowing, so on and so forth. Why? Because we're assuming that people have the skills to respond to all parts of life, rather than going, okay, there's many parts of life that all of us have not yet self-mastered. And so from there, we need to embrace our role as a forever student and a forever teacher of life. So the I Choose chart is simply about teaching people the skills of how they could respond differently to the parts of life that are currently being presented to them. But then we stand back and we offer them a choice. And we say, life is going to keep happening. You're going to keep being presented with those aspects of life time and time again. But when that happens, you can choose option 2. And when you choose option 2, just know you're also choosing these outcomes. And these consequences are ones that are possibly going to take you closer to red. Maybe not at red, but definitely closer to red. Or you could choose the new thumbs up wanted behaviours that we've discussed, that we've talked about. And when you choose those, you're also choosing to get these natural consequences. And those natural consequences are one that's more likely to take a person to blue. So when we're teaching skills in the Body Life Skills program, what we're trying to do is offer the opportunity for people to learn the skills to respond to life. And that's a very, very important part that I need to focus on when we're teaching skills. We had a young lady whose thumbs down behaviour, unwanted behaviour, was hitting. Now we all know that's a behaviour that we'd prefer for her not to be using. But what had been taught to her as a replacement behaviour is, rather than hitting, they said, thumbs up, hands are for clapping. Now in theory we would look at those and we'll go hitting and clapping. Clapping is definitely a much more preferred behaviour. But when I was working with the parents said to me, but the behaviour's not changing. And I said to them, well, can you explain to me what's the part of life of where the hitting is occurring? And they gave an example of recently she'd been at a birthday party and she had some party food for herself, and one of the other children came and took her party food. And in reaction to that food being taken from her, she then used her thumbs down behaviour of hitting the other child. So when we look at that example, the part of life that she was finding challenging was the fact that her party food had been taken. The unwanted behaviour was hitting. But what the outcome was that she was trying to get was, how do I get my party food back? Or how do I develop the skills to be in this party without any more party food? But all that she had on offer was the alternative tool that they had offered was hands are for clapping. But that clapping does not help her respond to the part of life. So what was the tools that we needed to teach her is the communication skills to ask an adult for help, to be able to ask the other children to get the food back, to be able to learn to develop the skills to be okay when all the party food had gone, and so on and so forth. But the thing that this example highlights is that we can't teach the behaviours that we want to see. That's never going to bring about lasting change. We need to teach the behaviours that are based on that person developing the skills so they then feel more equipped to respond to the aspect of life that they previously did not perceive that they were equipped to respond to. So the I Choose chart is all about teaching people the skills to respond to life. And when we have the skills to respond to that part of life, our body will stay closer to blue until a new part of life is presented. And we just go, okay, here's a new I Choose chart. Okay, this new part of life is being presented. Here's your current behaviours that you use to react to that part of life. And here's the current outcomes that you're receiving as a result of you choosing those behaviours. But here's the outcomes that you would prefer. How do we teach you to get those? So we highlight the consequences of what are naturally going to occur as a result of those unwanted behaviours. But then we go into the point of going, well, what's the outcome that you're hoping? And then we teach the person the skills to respond to that part of life. And it is simply a choice. You choose option 1, you choose these outcomes, you choose to go closer to blue. Or, equally, you can choose thumbs down, you choose these outcomes, which means you choose to go closer to red. So in truth, it's never life that takes us higher than blue. It's how we choose to respond to that particular life. It's never a setting that takes us higher than blue. It's how we choose to respond. If we react to that setting, we go higher than blue. If we learn the skills to respond to that part of life, then we go closer to blue. It's never another person. Even if that other person continually smashes our picture, doesn't meet the image that we required them to meet, it's our choice to react to that person, and that reaction will take us closer to red, or it's our choice to learn how to respond to that person, learn how to understand, learn how to observe, and take us closer to blue. It's never a task. It's never what's going on inside of us. It's always our choice of how we respond to life.